The fluorescent lights in the clinic hummed faintly as I sat waiting for Dr. Sterling. My purse rested on my lap, and my fingers tapped nervously against the worn leather strap. I had been coming to this clinic for almost 20 years. Dr. Elliot Sterling wasn't just my physician, he was a friend. He'd known my late husband, Robert, and had treated Benjamin since he was a boy. But something about today felt off. The nurse who usually greeted me with a smile had avoided eye contact. The receptionist's usual warmth was replaced with a clipped tone. When Dr. Sterling finally entered the room, he wasn't his usual calm, confident self. His movements were hesitant. His hands trembled ever so slightly as he checked my blood pressure. His eyes darted toward the hallway more than once, as though someone might be listening. I noticed the dark circles under his eyes and the faint sheen of sweat on his forehead. "Everything looks good, Mrs. Caldwell," he said, forcing a smile. "Your blood pressure is perfect. Your heart is strong." I nodded, but inside I felt uneasy. "Is something wrong, doctor?" I asked. "You seem nervous." He paused, just for a second too long. No, everything's fine. Just a long day." Then he leaned slightly closer. "You have many good years ahead of you, Martha. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Before I could respond, he gently placed a folded piece of paper at the bottom of my purse. It was so quick that for a moment I thought I had imagined it. "Take care, Mrs. Caldwell," he said softly, but his voice trembled. "And remember, family isn't always what it seems." As I walked out of the clinic, those words echoed in my mind. Family isn't always what it seems. In the cab ride home, I tried to convince myself it was nothing, maybe the doctor was just tired or stressed. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The note in my purse burned like fire through the leather, pulling at my curiosity and fear. I wanted to open it right there, but something stopped me. I wanted to be safe, in my home, before I looked. When I reached the house, Benjamin was sitting in the living room with Eleanor and Olivia. They were whispering, but the moment I opened the door, silence fell. Eleanor quickly folded a few papers and hid them behind her back. "How was your appointment, Mom?" Benjamin asked, smiling faintly, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "It went well," I replied. "Doctor says I'm in perfect health." Eleanor and Benjamin exchanged a look. Not of relief. Not of joy. But of disappointment. My heart sank. Why would they be disappointed that I was healthy? "That's wonderful news, Grandma," Olivia said, but her tone was distant, her eyes blank. "Means you've got plenty of time left." Her words should have been comforting, but they weren't. The chill in her voice made me shiver. I smiled faintly, hiding my discomfort, and excused myself to go rest. Dinner that night was quiet. Too quiet. The clinking of forks against plates was the only sound. Benjamin didn't speak much, Eleanor just stared at her phone, Olivia chewed absent-mindedly, scrolling through social media. I forced myself to eat a few bites of mashed potatoes, but my appetite was gone. Afterward, I went to my room. I could feel my heart pounding as I pulled the note from my purse. My hands trembled as I unfolded the small, crumpled paper. The message was written in Dr. Sterling's hurried handwriting. "Mrs. Caldwell, your family was here yesterday. Eleanor asked me about your mental health and whether I could certify that you need special care. They want to put you in a nursing home. They also asked about your inheritance and assets. Don't go home. Run. Dr. Sterling." I froze. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt, my breathing shallow. My own son? My family? I sat there staring at those words as tears welled in my eyes. Everything, the strange silence, the whispers, the disappointed looks, it all made sense now. They weren't worried about my health. They were angry that the doctor hadn't declared me unfit. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint creaks and murmurs of the house. At 2 a.m., I heard voices, soft, urgent, coming from the kitchen. I slipped out of bed, careful not to make a sound, and crept toward the door. The hallway light flickered, and I could make out the low tones of Benjamin and Eleanor talking. Then I heard Olivia's voice too. "The damn doctor wouldn't cooperate," Eleanor hissed. I told him the old woman's losing her mind, but he insisted she's perfectly fine. "Relax, sweetheart," Benjamin said. "We'll find another doctor. Someone willing to sign the papers we need." My heart started to race. Papers? What papers? But what about her in the meantime? Olivia asked. "I already got accepted to the college I wanted. I need that money now, not years from now when she dies." "Don't talk like that," Benjamin scolded, but his voice lacked conviction. "You have a point, though. We need to act soon. The house alone is worth $500,000. "I didn't marry you to take care of a senile old woman," Eleanor muttered. "I married you because I thought you'd inherit soon." I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. The world felt like it was collapsing. My own son, the boy I had raised with my bare hands, the boy I had fed when I had nothing, the one I held through every heartbreak, was plotting to steal from me. That was the night everything changed. I stood frozen in the dark hallway, listening to their voices twist my entire life into a cruel lie. Every word was a knife. Every laugh felt like a betrayal years in the making. I wanted to scream, to burst in there and demand answers, but I couldn't. My body wouldn't move. I just stood there, silent, invisible in my own home, while my family planned my erasure. "Tomorrow," Benjamin said, his tone low and steady, "I'll talk to the lawyer. Maybe we can start the process without a doctor's signature." "And if that doesn't work," Eleanor added, her voice calm and cruel, "we'll just make her life impossible until she gives up and goes to a nursing home on her own. Take away her TV, stop cooking for her, ignore her. She'll crack eventually." "Mom, don't be so mean," Olivia said. But then she laughed, that cold, sharp laugh of youth that knows no empathy. "Though to be honest, Grandma's been driving me crazy for years. Always asking where I'm going, what I'm doing, like I'm still a child." I felt my knees weaken. I leaned against the wall, biting my trembling lip to keep from crying out. These were the people I had sacrificed everything for, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Eleanor's voice cut through my thoughts again. "Do you remember that red dress she gave you for your 15th birthday? Olivia snorted. "How could I forget? It was hideous. She forced me to wear it in front of everyone. I swore I'd never forgive her." Laughter filled the kitchen, cruel, hollow laughter. Benjamin sighed. "Enough, both of you. I'll handle it. Next week, we'll tell her we found a nice place, a home with other seniors. And if she refuses," he paused. "If she refuses, we use Plan B." "What's Plan B?" Olivia asked. Benjamin's voice turned cold. "We make her lose her mind. Switch her medications, hide her things, make her doubt herself. In a few weeks, any doctor will confirm she's mentally unfit." The world tilted. I grabbed the wall to stay upright. They weren't just planning to rob me, they were planning to destroy me. Eleanor laughed softly. "That's perfect. Once she's committed, we'll have access to everything. Her accounts, the pension, the house. We can sell it and live comfortably. And no one will suspect a thing," Benjamin said proudly. "Everyone thinks we're the perfect family, the devoted son, the loving daughter-in-law, the sweet granddaughter. They'll believe whatever we say." Their voices faded as they left the kitchen. I remained frozen in the darkness for several minutes, staring into the void. The note in my hand trembled. Dr. Sterling's warning echoed in my ears, "Don't go home. Run." He had known. He had tried to save me. That night, I didn't close my eyes once. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed where I had tucked Benjamin in when he was little, where I had cried after my husband's death, where I had prayed for my family's happiness. Now that bed felt like a coffin. By dawn, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to stay and let them destroy me. But I also wasn't going to disappear quietly. At 5 a.m., I dressed quietly, packed a small suitcase, just the essentials, clothes, medicine, my documents, and the small notebook where I kept my late husband's old financial records. They thought I was poor, dependent. But Robert had left me with more than memories. Before leaving, I slipped my phone into my pocket and opened the voice recorder. Then, pretending to forget something, I walked slowly down the hallway, letting it capture their whispers through the half-closed doors. Eleanor's voice came first. "You think she suspects anything?" "Impossible," Benjamin said. "She's too old, too trusting. And even if she does, where would she go? She has no friends, no money, no one." "Pathetic," Eleanor muttered. "A 70-year-old woman who spent her life serving others. She deserves what's coming." My breath shook, but I stayed silent. Their words would be my proof. When I had enough, I stopped the recording and walked to the kitchen. On the counter, I left a short note, "Gone to run some errands. Back later. Martha." They wouldn't suspect a thing. They would think I was just being my usual, naive self. Outside, the morning air felt different. Cold, sharp, but alive. I hailed a cab and gave the driver an address I hadn't used in years, my old bank downtown. At the bank, I requested to withdraw $5,000 in cash. The teller looked surprised. "Are you sure, ma'am? That's quite a bit to carry." "I'm sure," I said firmly. As she handed me the envelope, I felt something inside me harden. I wasn't the helpless old woman they thought I was. I was Martha Caldwell, the woman who had survived poverty, loss, and decades of sacrifice. And now I was ready to survive betrayal too. From there, I went to the Grand Imperial Hotel, a quiet place in the city where no one would think to look for me. I booked a suite under my maiden name, Martha Avery. When I entered the room, I finally exhaled. The city spread out before me through the window. The skyline glittered like 1,000 silent promises. I sat down, opened my notebook, and began to plan. They thought they were the hunters. But from now on, I would be the one watching them. By the time the sun rose high over the city, I had already written out a plan in my notebook, my revenge, my justice, my freedom. Every detail had to be perfect. I knew my family too well. They were predictable in their greed, careless in their arrogance. That would be their downfall. The first step was to protect what was mine. I called the only person I could still trust, Charles Donovan, my late husband's old attorney. We hadn't spoken in years, but when he answered, his calm, deep voice brought back a flood of memories. "Martha," he said softly, surprised. "It's been a long time." "I need your help, Charles," I said, steady but urgent. "It's about my family. They're trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. I have proof, but I need legal protection, fast." There was a pause on the other end. Then he said, "Come to my office in 1 hour. And Martha, don't talk to anyone until then." "I won't," I promised. After hanging up, I felt a new kind of power humming inside me. For years, I had been silent, shrinking myself so others could shine. But now I was done being invisible. At the law firm, Charles listened carefully as I told him everything, from the doctor's warning to the late-night conversation I had recorded. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Martha, he said slowly, what your son and his wife are planning is criminal. It's elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. With your recordings, we can open a case immediately. I don't want them in jail, I said quietly. Not yet. I want them to feel what I felt, the fear, the betrayal, the helplessness. I want them to lose everything before the law even touches them. A faint smile touched Charles's lips. Then we'll do it your way. But I'll make sure the law is waiting when the time comes. He helped me set up new legal protections, freezing access to all my accounts, transferring my properties into a trust that only I could unlock, and revoking any power of attorney documents that might exist. By the time I left his office, Benjamin's plan was already collapsing, and he didn't even know it yet. Back at the hotel, I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat by the window. Below, people moved through their daily routines, laughing, rushing, living. For a moment, I envied them. But then I remembered who I was now. I wasn't the fragile old woman anymore. I was the storm they had created. At noon, my phone buzzed relentlessly, 17 missed calls from Benjamin, 8 from Eleanor, 3 from Olivia. Then came the text messages. Mom, please call us. We're worried. Martha, this isn't funny. Come home. Grandma, Dad says you might be confused. Please come back. Each message dripped with fake concern. I almost laughed. I finally replied to one message. Don't worry. I'm fine. I just needed some space. Within seconds, Benjamin called. I let it ring twice before answering. Mom. Where are you? You can't just disappear like this. His voice was tight, angry, pretending to be scared. I'm fine, Benjamin. I just wanted a little time for myself. That doesn't sound like you, he said, tone sharpening. You always tell us where you go. Are you taking your medication? Did you forget? There it was, the manipulation, subtle but poisonous. I smiled to myself. I'm taking my medication just fine, I said calmly. And I remember everything. Including what you said last night. Silence. I could almost hear his heart stop through the phone. What do you mean? He asked cautiously. Nothing, dear, I replied sweetly. Just a reminder, walls have ears. I hung up before he could speak again. For the first time in years, I laughed. It wasn't a laugh of joy. It was a laugh of awakening, of realizing just how powerful the truth could be when wielded correctly. That evening, Charles called again. Martha, I've contacted a private investigator. His name is Daniel Graves. He's reliable, discreet, and very good at what he does. He'll be at your hotel tomorrow morning. Perfect, I said. When Daniel arrived the next day, he was polite, professional, and sharp-eyed, a man used to uncovering secrets. I told him everything, handed him the recording, and gave him one task: find out everything about my family, every debt, every lie, every secret. He nodded once. You'll have a report in 3 days, Mrs. Caldwell. 3 days later, he returned with a thick folder. What I read inside made my stomach turn. Benjamin had maxed out every credit card he owned. Eleanor had been taking out loans using my name. For luxury trips, jewelry, even a cosmetic surgery last year. Olivia, my sweet granddaughter, had been using my personal information to get early access to college scholarships, claiming I was a dependent relative with dementia. Every line in that report was another betrayal carved into my heart. But I didn't cry this time. I smiled. Because now I had proof. That night, I called Charles again. It's time, I said. Let's begin. The next morning, I woke up feeling strangely calm, the kind of calm that comes before a storm. The sunlight seeped through the curtains of my hotel suite, warm and golden, but it couldn't touch the cold determination inside me. I brewed myself a cup of coffee and opened the notebook that had now become my war manual. Across the top of the first page, I wrote in bold letters, Operation Freedom. Step 1, expose their lies. Step 2, take back my life. Step 3, make them pay. At 9 a.m., Charles arrived at the hotel with a confident smile and a stack of papers. Everything's in motion, he said. Your assets are now fully protected under your name only. I've also notified the police about the unauthorized credit cards your daughter-in-law opened. They're investigating quietly. I nodded. Good. But I don't want them arrested yet. I want them to feel the trap closing. Charles chuckled. You've changed, Martha. I remember you as a gentle, patient woman. She died, I replied. They killed her the moment they plotted against me. By noon, Daniel, the private investigator, joined us with fresh updates. He handed me photos, Benjamin arguing with debt collectors, Eleanor at a jewelry store with my credit card, Olivia attending parties using money transferred from my bank account. Each picture was a stab, but also a weapon. They think you're weak, Daniel said. They've been bragging to friends that soon they'll be moving into your house once you're in a facility. They even started talking to a real estate agent. I laughed quietly. Then let's make sure they sell something that doesn't belong to them. That night, I called Benjamin. My voice was soft, controlled. Benjamin, darling, could you and Eleanor come to the hotel tomorrow morning? I want to talk. He hesitated. The hotel? Why there? I have something important to show you, something about my finances, I said. It's urgent. There was a pause, then the greedy excitement in his tone broke through. Of course, Mom. We'll be there at 10. When they arrived the next morning, they were all smiles, pretending warmth. Eleanor wore her expensive coat, Olivia her designer shoes, all bought with my stolen money. Benjamin hugged me awkwardly. You look great, Mom. The hotel suits you. Sit, I said. My tone was polite but firm. We have business to discuss. Their smiles faltered slightly, but they sat. I slid an envelope across the table. Open it. Benjamin picked it up, frowning. Inside were printed copies of every forged credit card statement, every fake transaction, and photos from Daniel's investigation. The color drained from Eleanor's face. Mom, this isn't what it looks like. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like, I interrupted calmly. Fraud. Theft. Abuse. Every call, every loan, every lie. Benjamin swallowed hard. Where did you get this? Let's just say I have friends who are better at protecting me than you are at betraying me. Eleanor tried to recover. You don't understand, Martha. We were under pressure. The bills, pressure? I repeated slowly. You mean the pressure of living beyond your means? Of stealing from the woman who raised you? The woman who gave up her life for you? The room fell silent. Olivia, pale and fidgeting, tried to speak. Grandma, I didn't, don't, I said sharply. You did. You lied about me to get scholarship money. You forged my name. You all did. Benjamin stood up, his face red. Mom, you're overreacting. We were just trying to help you. You can't live alone anymore. We thought, don't, I said again, this time with an edge that cut through the air. Don't insult me with lies. I heard everything. Every word you said that night. Benjamin froze. What do you mean? I took out my phone, tapped play. The recording of their whispered conspiracy filled the room, Eleanor's voice, Olivia's sarcasm, Benjamin's cold planning. Their faces drained of life. Eleanor gasped, Olivia covered her mouth, and Benjamin slumped into his chair. How long have you known? He whispered. Long enough, I said. Long enough to realize that love doesn't always come from blood, sometimes it's just a mask for greed. Tears welled in my eyes, but my voice didn't waver. You tried to destroy me, Benjamin. You planned to steal my sanity, my home, my dignity. But I've taken everything back. Every cent. Every right. Every piece of myself. Eleanor broke down, sobbing. Please, Martha. We made a mistake. Don't ruin our lives. I looked at her coldly. You already ruined mine. Then I stood up, collected my papers, and walked toward the door. By the way, I added without turning around, the police already know. They'll contact you soon. I left them there, pale and trembling, as the weight of their crimes sank in. Outside, the city air felt fresher than it had in years. I was free. But this wasn't the end. Oh no, this was just the beginning. She had expected them to plead, to bargain, maybe to beg. What she hadn't expected was how small they would look once the mask came off. I returned to the hotel suite and locked the door behind me, heart pounding but steady. I poured a glass of water, sat at the desk, and opened my notebook. Operation Freedom had moved from plan to execution. The recording had been the first blow. Now I needed momentum, legal pressure, public exposure, and a calculated withdrawal of every shelter of plausible deniability they'd built. Step 4. Secure evidence and allies. Step 5. Expose publicly. Step 6. Cut them off completely. That afternoon Dr. Montgomery arranged 3 meetings. First, with a trusted prosecutor who specialized in elder abuse. Second, with a forensic accountant to trace every unauthorized transaction. Third, with a journalist at a respected local paper who had broken a number of consumer rights stories. I felt a curious, new sensation, vindication that smelled faintly of justice. The prosecutor didn't smile. Mrs. Caldwell, we can bring charges. Fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and, depending on what the accountant finds, potentially money laundering. His voice was precise, and I liked the sound of it. But your cooperation has to be thorough and patient. These families don't fall in one day. The accountant, a woman with wire-rimmed glasses and a blunt haircut, sat with a laptop, tapping while I explained every transaction I could remember. Show me everything you have, bank statements, receipts, any paper trail. I handed over dusty checkbooks, the hotel receipt from the day I'd flown away, the list of emergency cash withdrawals, and the envelope of printouts from Daniel. She smiled thinly. They're sloppy. That helps us. People who steal from elders tend to mix personal expenses with family outings. We'll untangle it. The journalist's eyes lit up when I told my story. This is the kind of case that resonates, she said. An elderly woman betrayed by her own family, people will read it and be outraged. But you want legal action first, we'll coordinate to avoid jeopardizing the prosecution. I felt the scale tipping. Not simply legal consequence, social exposure that would strip them of the safety of secrecy. That night I slept 2 hours and then woke and worked. I rewound the recording, listening for every subtle confession. I compiled dates, names, stores, bank transfers. I called the bank and froze access to my accounts remotely. I moved my offshore trustee to activate a contingency clause I'd long stored for a hypothetical emergency, an immediate block on any transfers to family member accounts, and permission to release financial resources only with my written authorization and oversight by Dr. Montgomery's firm. The trust administrator asked no questions, the papers were in order. They had been there, waiting for the very moment greed surfaced. Word spread as quietly as an electric current. The prosecutor opened a file. The accountant traced purchases to specific card numbers that matched Eleanor's signature samples. The private investigator dug up vacations, receipts, and the jewelry purchases filmed in city boutiques. Benjamin's frantic calls increased, now thin with fear. They adapted, of course they did. Denial, then deflection, then anger. They accused me of overreach, of paranoia, of being ungrateful. The neighborhood murmured. To my surprise and relief, more neighbors contacted me than the other way around. A woman who'd once borrowed sugar from me every Saturday came with a stack of utility slips showing that my name had been used to sign up for services at a house where no one lived, a house Benjamin had been using to stash goods. Another neighbor admitted she'd heard them talking late and had thought it gossip. Now she volunteered her witness statement. The people they'd counted on to look away were slowly aligning with the truth. The prosecutor wanted restraint. We build the case, he said. We don't feed the tabloids. We document a pattern. But the journalist wanted context and heart, and so we planned a carefully timed piece, not sensational, but human. The article would highlight elder financial abuse, give resources, and mention that a criminal investigation was underway without undermining it. On a humid Thursday, Daniel presented a binded folder at my hotel room, shrink-wrapped receipts, hashtagged photos of extravagant purchases, banknote itineraries. He closed the folder like a book. All set to go to the DA. When the DA filed for subpoenas, Benjamin panicked. He called every lawyer he could find, made threats, promised repayment he didn't intend to keep. He tried to coerce friends to testify there could be a misunderstanding. But the paper trail was too clean. The prosecutor was ruthless in the courtroom the way a surgeon is ruthless in the OR, clinical, effective, not cruel. Next I had to tackle the emotional architecture they'd built around me. Their story to neighbors had been that I was eccentric, forgetful, flustered by modern life. That spin had to be dismantled. Dr. Moore, my psychiatrist from the evaluation, wrote a clear, professional report summarizing my cognitive scores and capacity. My hairdresser, bank manager, and Mr. Summer, the hardware owner who'd installed the cameras, all agreed to provide statements about my competence and daily independence. The first hearing was procedural, motions, affidavits, objections. Benjamin and Eleanor tried to paint themselves as concerned caregivers. Olivia sat silent, eyes rimmed with red. In the corridor afterward they stood in a tight cluster, and Benjamin muttered something about how I'd ruined his life. I walked past them into the elevator and felt no tremor. The woman who'd once prayed for her son's health now carried the steady cadence of someone who had rediscovered her own backbone. Months passed in legal loops, depositions, contested records, subpoenas that dragged relatives into uncomfortable public spaces. Each subpoena peeled away a layer of denial and made them look smaller. Each bill paid by the prosecution for expert testimony, each notarized document, was another nail in the coffin of their plan. The bank reversed many unauthorized transactions and instituted fraud investigations. The boutique returned disputed charges under pressure. The prosecutor forwarded evidence to a grand jury. But justice can be slow. I wanted the next move to hurt them where it hurt most, their reputation and their plans for the house. I called the real estate agent Benjamin and Eleanor had consulted. A private discussion was enough to freeze any pending sale. You've got incriminating allegations, I said quietly. Would you like to be part of that? He backed away. We do a lot of business based on trust, he said. We can't be involved. The pause on his end was all the answer I needed. Then I did something less legal and more public. I prepared a letter, not to shame them in the block or the bar, but to assert ownership and public control. It was short, formal, and precise, notification to any third party that the property was under legal scrutiny, and that any transaction would be subject to review. I had the lawyer file it with the county clerk so it became public record. The clerk stamped it. The world I had kept private suddenly had a legal bright line through it. They reacted exactly as predicted, frightened, then retaliatory. But retaliation was now visible. They hired a private attorney and began countersuits, slander, claims that I'd conspired with Daniel to fabricate evidence. We expected it, we were ready. Dr. Montgomery's team countered with affidavits, bank verifications, travel logs, and the audio. The empire of lies trembled. And in the quiet moments, when the paperwork slept on the desk and the city outside hummed like a far-off machine, I sat on the balcony of my suite and watched a new version of myself take shape. I thought about the 45 years of sacrifice that had led here, the patching, the tucking in, the secret savings stashed away like armor. I thought about the woman who once would have forgiven without recourse. She was not entirely gone, she had simply learned that love that eats you alive is not love at all. There would be trials still, reckonings of a legal and social kind. There would be days when the house where I had lived would echo with their silence. There would be no tidy, immediate closure. But the scale had swung. Once hidden, their greed now glinted under scrutiny. The game had changed, they were no longer playing with a pawn but facing a woman who had found her king. Tomorrow, Dr. Montgomery said, the grand jury would decide whether to indict. Tonight I prepared another cup of coffee, opened my notebook, and wrote a single line at the top of the page, "We do not forgive what we will not forget." And then I slept, not the fragile sleep of the betrayed, but the heavy, honest sleep of someone who had finally reclaimed the right to be alone. And whole.